na mesa. Testing. 1 2 1 2. Emancipation Day will be soon on. Are you hearing me? That's good. Enough to show. Good morning. Testing, just testing. For those who know, tomorrow is Emancipation Day, and we're testing the mic. And it's a cultural parade. We meet at Heritage Square 3 o'clock, just in your fancy African attire, and we proceed down to Victoria Park and our Independence Park for a grand cultural showcase. Be there. Testing, testing, testing. 1 2 3. Gigi? You want that in? We'll commence in 5 minutes. Usually the protocol is when the GG gets here, we start, but my honorable minister is on his way, and so he has granted me permission. So we'll start shortly. Good morning to everyone. We now officially call this session to order with prayer by Mrs. Helen Prince.
Good morning, everyone. Can we stand for prayers, please? Heavenly Father, we do invite your presence here with us this morning. We ask you, Lord, that you would look over the entire proceeding and ask for your blessing. At this time, I want to offer up the organization of JEMS to you. I ask that you continue to bless them and you help, Lord, that the organization grows from strength to strength. We pray that all the goals that they have would be accomplished. At this time, Lord, I ask you to bless Dr. Simmons as he launches this morning. I ask that you continue to be with him. I ask that you continue to give him ideas and that he would be able to achieve all that he has in mind. At this time, I ask you to bless every one of us here. Cover us with your blood. Protect us. Keep us safe. Persons on their way, we ask that you would bring them safely. And we present everything that would be done, said and done here in your hands. I ask that everything would be done and everyone would have you in mind as we do all that we're going to be doing here today. Continue to watch over us. Continue to protect us. And we offer up everything to your name's honor and glory. These and other mercies I ask with thanksgiving for Christ's sake. Amen.
Please remain standing as we have our national anthem played.
Saint Vincent land so beautiful, with joyful hearts we pledge to thee our loyalty and love and vow to keep you ever free. Whatever future brings, our faith will see us through. May peace reign from shore to shore, and God bless and keep us true. Irene, now fair and blessed Isle, your mountains high, so clear and green, are home to me. Though I may stray, a haven calm serene. Whatever future brings, our faith will see us through. May peace reign from shore to shore, and God bless and keep us true. Our little sister islands are those gems, the lovely Grenadines, upon their seas and golden sands, the sunshine ever beams. Whatever future brings, our faith will see us nation. And God bless us.
Will now be played in Garifuna.
You may malubu idu mamu tiwa bagaru afienti wabu waku wagendagu bagwa kabalanu gaharuga wawaseruba lawiseni wapaningagwa laulubafu abureme yume malubu idu iyuti harumati bibubu wagera losundi sewama.
Thank you. May I have your seat?
Kabala.
Thank you, Monty. His Excellency Sir Stanley Kendrick John Casey, Governor General of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the Honorable Kashaka Cupid, Minister of Youth, Sports, Culture, and Creative Industries, other members of Cabinet, former parliamentarians, Ms. Gianna Nevison, President of JEMS, Dr. Andrew Simmons, Director of JEMS, featured author and exhibition presenter, Dr. Agent Fraser, historian, Mr. Jimmy Ford, Chief Executive Officer, Acado SVG, and representative of the sponsor, Mr. Samuel Goodluck, Chief Executive Officer, Vincent, executive members and members of JEMS, representatives of Acado, SVG, and Vinshow, sponsors, partners, and specially invited guests, members of the media, especially API who's carrying this live, ladies and gentlemen, all, good morning. Buiti Binafi, buenos dias. It was Marcus Mosiah Garvey who expressed, a people without the knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. We are a blessed people, and with so many wonderful blessings, we at the Department of Culture are determined in our quest for people, all Vincentians, our fellow Vincentians, to be grounded, rooted, knowing our history through our many programs and through our integration of the arts in all places of learning, including our educational institutions. It is on these grounds that the Department of Culture is happy to be associated with this project. In fact, as we do our part to recapture, revive, reclaim our Garifuna story, because initially we didn't know about it, but now we do. Thanks to our Garifuna people in the diaspora, Tristan Hale, these are some of the names I recall, working hard to ensure we reclaim what is dutifully ours. Trevor Carabali Palacio, Eleanor Costello Bullock, Rosita Baltasar, Efrasina, James Lovell, Sylvia Caetano, Sandra Miranda George, Joan Hoyt, TGHF, the Department of Culture, and several others from our Garifuna diaspora. So now we are more knowledgeable. We have become more informed, more empowered about our Garifuna story, our Garifuna history, our Kalinago history, our indigenous peoples, and how people were exiled and left to die on Baliso. But thanks to our resilience, we survived. We are here to continue this legacy. All things considered, we are knowledgeable about Baliso, our Baliso. But it was the University of Warwick, thanks to Professor Kate Asbury, Abigail Choppins, and SV2G, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, second generation, Dr. Jacqueline Roberts. It's through them we got to know more, learn more about our people. Yes. The University of Warwick afforded us the opportunity to be exposed to our people who are prisoners of war and taken to Portchester in Britain. Truth be told, everyone was not exiled in Ballysoe. Some were captured and taken to the UK, a long, treacherous journey on rough seas to Portchester Castle in Portsmouth in the UK. In 2024, Miss Madonna Coke Peters, Ingrid Lavie and I were afforded the opportunity to be exposed to Portchester story, to the Portchester story. That is where we became more knowledgeable about our people as prisoners of war. That is where we saw Chatier's signature, and I must say at this time, a few years back, a van driver, a gaff, traveling to the best constituency, West Kingston, said to me, Miss Maxine, I always hear you on radio and see you on TV talking about Chatier. Have you ever met his brother, sister, mommy? Nothing about Chatier. But truth be told, when I saw that signature at the Natural Archives in London, I said, hail Chatier, long live Chatier, ever present. Having been empowered with the knowledge of the Portchester story, we have returned to SVG to further empower others with the knowledge we have acquired through workshops held in Ovia, thanks to Ingrid Lavia. Exhibitions and other educational programs are facilitated by Miss Madonna Peters at Georgetown Secondary School, where she's a teacher, a history teacher that is, and some of her works are usually seen or felt and heard at the National Schools Garifuna Folk Festival held annually during Heroes and Heritage Month. And yours truly, Ms. Maxine Marvin Brown, continues to integrate her knowledge received in and through the arts. So the arts work, it should be integrated all over. And as we get more versed about the topic, we continue to build awareness of that part of our history. Knowledge is power, I repeat. Knowledge is power, and we use that power to further empower others. And I'm proud to indicate that thanks to our work at Culture and SV2G's quest for all Vincentians to be rooted, I was afforded a second chance to be further empowered thanks to the University of Warwick in June 2026. I was in Portchester to be further engaged in learning more about our heritage. That is where I met Mr. Andrew, Dr. Andrew Simmons, along with our ambassador, our High Commissioner, Brenton Horn, who serves in the United Kingdom. And the rest is history. We are here in collaboration. So we have chosen to collaborate on this project to bring it to you, our people, so that you too could be informed about the prisoners of war in Portchester, England. And some indeed may have been Garifuna. In welcoming you, we thank you for coming to this exhibition of history, heritage, and memory, Garifuna, Prisoners of War, and exhibition. We must make the exerted effort to know our history. Knowing our history gives us strength, identity, and a way forward. History counts. History matters because knowing from whence we came, and whenever I use that word, I remember Dr. Jen Freight and that big program, From Whence We Came, you know who you are today, or we know who we are today. It offers strength when we are rooted. Roots keep a tree steady in a storm. Likewise, history keeps a group strong through hard times, and it prevents mistakes. When we learn from what has happened before, it helps us avoid repeating those bad choices, those bad mistakes. We need to know our history. The Portchester story is a part of our story as well. Get to know more about it. Get to know more about it. Jackie and Kate and Abigail are ready and willing to expose us. To this end, if you are desirous of learning more about the Portchester story and would like to participate in future initiatives with SV2G, please get in touch with us at the Department of Culture. In fact, we have displayed a sheet with the Q code. So we'll be grateful if you can scan it and fill out the relevant questions, just 4 short questions, so that we can get your feedback and know the way forward. I repeat, to help with future activities and to understand the importance of projects like this, we will truly be honored and appreciative if we hear from you. We need your feedback. So during the exhibition or after, scan that code and respond accordingly. Simple questions. I take this opportunity to announce that our very own Jacqueline Roberts, SV2G's Chief Executive and Co-founder, has been awarded an honorary doctorate from the University of Warwick for exceptional contribution to heritage, community, leadership, and racial justice. She's watching. Put your hands together for our doctor. Congratulations. Well deserved. We are proud of you. We are glad that you have come. And those who have found you live, thanks for tuning in. Thank you, API, for live coverage. Welcome, welcome, welcome all. It's Emancipation Month. Let's celebrate. Thank you. Celebrate. At this time, we'll call on Dr. Andrew Simmons, Director of JEMS, to provide the background and relevance of the exhibition. Let's welcome him, please.
Protocol already been established. Thank you very much, Sister Maxine, for such kind words and words of inspiration. Indigenous people play a vital role in sustaining global diversity, preserving ancient knowledge, and guiding environmental stewardship. Their perspective offer essential insights for modern ecological survival and social justice. It was when their way of life was threatened that the Garifuna people took the stance to protect their islands from foreign invasion and the expansion of British colonialism. And Sister Maxine just raised that appropriate quote from Marcus Garvey, when he said that a people without knowledge of their history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. Let me take the opportunity at this stage to welcome each of you to this important activity, the Garifuna Prisoners of War exhibition and book launch. My role here is very simple, basically to indulge you for the next 10 minutes by highlighting, sharing data relevant to this component of our history. Explore the challenges encountered during the imprisonment of the Garifuna people at Portchester Castle, Hampshire, US, UK, and to recognize the persons and their institutions who were instrumental in discovering this component of our Vincentian, Caribbean, Garifuna reality and make this activity possible. The relevance of this history to our overall development. Facts. And this is from the records that were developed or extracted from our colleagues from Warwick University. We knew that 2,500 prisoners of war were transported to Portchester Castle in Hampshire in 1796 after they surrendered to the British in St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and Grenada. We also knew that about 2,800 of them were black indigenous people and persons of mixed heritage. It was a combined force of free people, including former enslaved people born in Africa, French revolutionaries, indigenous men, women, and children who fought against the British for their freedom. So what happened in St. Vincent under the leadership of Chatelier was a revolution, a war for our freedom. And I think that there are quite a lot of lessons that we can extract from their experiences. We also knew that on arrival at Portchester Castle, officials registered their names to facilitate the exchange for British prisoners of war held in France. Data from St. Vincent, and I would try to extract a bit. After the death of Chatelier in 1795, the Garifuna French coalition were unable to sustain the attack from the British and surrender in 1796. Record show that 350 men, women, and children were sent to Britain as prisoners of war. Those were the persons who were fighting in St. Vincent. Those are from the records. Researchers were also of the view that the surrender of the coalition forces made it easy for the British to exile the Garifuna people to Baliso and Batiwea, and then to Belize and other countries in Central America. The Garifuna fighters, in their own right, were revolutionaries. They were skilled in guerrilla warfare. They were also clever negotiators, persuading the British to treat them as prisoners of war, granting them the same rights and privileges that was given to the French. For me, this is a really serious accomplishment. They negotiated for such rights, and to me this is the part that is very interesting, for such rights, not just to give them to them, but to give them to their men, to their women and children. The researchers took time to cross-reference the British and the French records about the prisoners of war. And these are the reflections from. This data enables researchers to provide an understanding of the inter-island cooperation in their struggle against colonialism. And I think that came out in the book that Dr. Fraser, Dr. Scott, the first volume, that it was this So it wasn't just the Garifuna people alone fighting. There were people from as far as Puerto Rico to Venezuela and some Latin American country, from Haiti. They were in St. Vincent fighting. And for me, this gave us an eye-opener in terms of the leadership of Chartier. So this is something that we should consider. Because to be able to mobilize forces from across the Caribbean, from the Americas right down, from the North American right down to South America, to me, that is something that is a feat that we really need to do a bit more research in. Right, Pat? Bob Marley, and I just want to quote a piece of the song from Bob Marley, Africa Unite. How good and pleasant it would be before God and man to see the unification of all Africans. As it be said already, let it be done. We are the children of the African. We are the children of the Iron Man. So for me, even from 230 years ago, that under the leadership of Chartier, there were quite a lot of movement in terms of organizations in St. Vincent by pulling people from across the Caribbean to not just in solidarity, but to come to St. Vincent to be part of their forces. So over 230 years ago, the people across the Caribbean united under one force to fight against British colonialism. And I'm confident that we will continue to unite against when forces are threatening our existence in what situation it is in St. Vincent. Let me just mention, before I close, a bit about some of the problems faced by the prisoners of war. We know that that journey from St. Vincent across the Atlantic to the UK was a treacherous one. So quite a lot, hundreds of them became victims from the cold winter and also from diseases during the crossing. Records showed they faced harsh conditions such as frictions with other European prisoners. Remember, they were predominantly black and people of mixed race. Out of the 5,000, 2,800. So you can glean what you can from that statement. They were also denied the opportunities for parole before the process for release or exchange. In concluding, I want to just to pay tribute, and Sister Maxine allude to that, of the stalwarts, the work of Jackie Roberts. And I want you to put your hands together for her sister, who is here with us, came all the way from the UK to be here with us. Can you just raise your hands, Sister Thomas? Yes. The work that the SVG-2G is doing is significant. They went through there were 3 floors, right, Sister Maxine? Or in a castle. And they were able to take all the various, produce these documents and take them and put them in on six panels so that we in St. Vincent can experience these things. So put our hands together for Jackie and her group for this excellent work. Professor Kate Otsbury and Dr. Abigail Coppins, I had to get it right because I almost said Choppins. I said, how appropriate is this? These guys stumble on this information. One of them, I think Abigail, she was she wanted a topic to do her PhD under the supervision of Professor Kate, and they found this information. And so I want to just to say tribute to them. But most importantly, I want all of us to recognize the contribution of His Excellency Brayton Horn, High Commissioner of St. Vincent and the Grenadines in the UK, for ensuring. In fact, when we went, we had the discussions with Maxine down at Portchester, and I said, we need to get this to St. Vincent because we need to ensure that our people partake of this experience. And 2 weeks ago, I received a call from His Excellency saying, Andrew, check by the thing should be in St. Vincent in a week. I said, but how come you do something like that? Because these things would take some time to organize, because there are a number of, especially students at community college, secondary schools, and so on. We definitely need, and the various Garifuna organizations. But I called Sister Maxine and I said, the thing them there? And she said, Andrew, if they're here, we would fix it. Thank you very much for Sister Maxine. So, in St. Vincent, I want to say thanks, Madam President of JEMS, Joanna Nevesu, who, because they could have just said, no, we can't take on this one, because they have a whole heap of books and they had to pack out for students. But when I went to the group and I said, this is the situation, they said, no, we have to be part of that. So I just want to say thanks to JEMS for being part of that. Thanks to Sister Maxine, Minister, Culture, Sports, for Creative Industries, for being part in this collaborative activities. And we're hoping this would run for whole day tomorrow, and we're hoping, again, I'm coming back to you, so that we can explore the possibility of taking this, Sister Pat, up to North Windward and then to South Leeward before, so we still have some work to do. But, after Carnival in St. Vincent, most of the companies and so on deplete all their charity money. So I was in England, and I received a call from Brother Ford. And the thing, we went way back, since we were little youths. I usually say little youths, and NYC and so on. And so I told him about the visit. I think about 2 days after, I told him about the visit, and he said, when you come down, because he was going to France, when you come down, let's discuss it. And when I called him, I said, we need some money. for the facility. We need something for reception. We need this, we need that. And, you know, I was breathing in. And he said, just tell me the cost, and, you know, we will deal with that. So I want to say thank you very much, Brother Ford and Arcado, for being there to support such venture. UWI Global Campus, JEMS, we had over the past 3 years through the climate change arena, working collaboratively with University of the West Indies. Many times we organize sessions and we're not being charged. So for this activity, they said, look, we would give you a good discount. So I want to say thanks again, you know. And let me just, in terms of rounding up, said, you know, I was so amazed when I listened to Bob Marley Uprising album, the song Revolution. And he said, it takes a revolution to make a solution. Too much confusion, so much frustration. I don't want to live in the dark. Can't trust no shadows of the dark. Like a bird in the tree, the prisoners must be free. And so for me, these are, you know, very appropriate words from Bob Marley, and you would see what happened after. But I just want to say, I do hope that the information provided would add to your knowledge of the uniqueness of the Vincentian reality, culture, and history. Thank you very much.
Again, put your hands together for us. Our Dr. Andrew Simmons. The records have shown over 2,500 people, prisoners of war, and they were sent to, I almost said Ballisto, Portchester. Remember the Portchester story. Our author and exhibitor admonished us to unite as a people. And in this unity, we ought to embrace who we are as a people and know history. He mentioned the song Revolution. You have to study that song. I don't know that one. I know others from Bomali. But together as a people, we can do our part to ensure that this message of the Portchester story, and I see my Garifuna sister has just entered, Jennifer Hoyt, and we ought to make time to know history. That's very important. Again, let's acknowledge our Dr. Andrew Simmons. At this time, I bring to the lectern to offer remarks our sponsor, Mr. Jimmy Ford, CEO, Acado. Let's welcome him, please.
His Excellency, Sir Stanley Kendrick John, KC, Honorable Minister Kashaka Cupid, other members of Cabinet, former parliamentarians, Director of Culture, Maxine Brown, President of JEMS, Joanna Neverson, the man of the moment, Dr. Andrew Simmons, historian, Dr. Fraser, other sponsors, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I stand here today as the CEO of Acado SVG and a proud sponsor of this Garifuna Prisoners of War exhibition and book launch organized by Dr. Andrew Simmons. Many of you may not know that my very first job was that of a teacher. I taught at the North Union Secondary from 1983 to 1984. I then taught at the Gomemeti School until 1986. The subject that I taught, one of the subjects that I taught at those schools was history. And the truth of the matter is, the history that I taught made mention of the Garifuna people being the original settlers of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And their banishment to Baliso and Batavia, and then on to Belize, Honduras, and the rest of Central America. I knew nothing about the Vincentian prisoners of war, so I could not have taught that back in those days. But recently, I got a call from my good old buddy, my old youth and social development colleague, Andrew Simmons, asking if my company would like to sponsor this very important historic exhibition in which we are reclaiming the history of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I could not decline. This sort of work falls directly into the threshold of what Acado is about, enriching lives, helping people as we operate throughout the Caribbean. So when Andrew explained to me about the discovery, I said, Andrew, Acado must be a part of this. We must help to educate our young students, scholars, Vincentian people, Garifuna people, about the history of this country. And we write it properly. And I think that is what this activity is trying to do today. Along the way, Dr. Simmons will bring greater light to Vincentians about our history. He has also coincided the exhibition with the launch of 3 books, namely Impact of Climate Change on Young People in Small Island Communities, Climate Change Adaptation Framework and Youth Entrepreneurship in West Africa, and Building Institutions for Resilience Combating Climate Change. Dr. Simmons is a Vincentian environmentalist who would have worked around the world, but more so around the Commonwealth countries. However, he started his journey, like myself, as a teacher and youth and community organizer. It was about 1985 when I first met Andrew Simmons at a National Youth Council biennial convention at the Girls High School. I did not know the man before. I heard of him. I was representing the Top Bel Air Progressive Organization, and Andrew was representing JEMS Community Organization. I listened the executive report from then President of the National Youth Council, Arthur Bob, and I listened to some other crosstalk by some other members, one of whom is here today, a fellow by the name of Jimmy Prince. And I said to Andrew, as upstart, I was all, I said to Andrew, man, I feel I could do a better job than fellows up there. So what do? Nominate me for vice president. Andrew then said to me, but I want to be vice president too. I said, that's not a problem. There are positions for 2 vice presidents. So I will nominate you, and you will nominate me, and let the flow do the rest. And you followed my advice, and we were both successful at being vice president of the National Youth Council. And that's where the relationship started. Andrew, I will consider a very successful Vincentian. And I think I would consider myself another successful Vincentian. But what most persons would not know is that our successes are intertwined. And let me tell you how I come by that. I just told you the piece for the National Youth Council election there. I left teaching around 1986 and became the assistant youth officer in the Ministry of Youth Affairs. And Andrew, through JEMS, brought a project to my attention that I thought was an excellent project. That is bringing pipe-borne water from Carapan Secondary School down to the Stubbs Clinic, down to the clinic at the road in Stubbs, and wanted my department to sponsor the project. JEMS provided the labor, digging the trenches, and we provided the pipe. When the British development man came down to see what St. Vincent was doing with the money that we got from the British Development Organization, I was told by the then minister, Jerry Scott, Jimmy, you have to carry the man out to see that project is stopped, and it's one of the best in the country. So I took the man out there, and the gentleman was so impressed with the work that was done by JEMS, Andrew and JEMS. And he asked which university Andrew went to. He said, none, School of Hard Knocks. Teachers College. What we did not know at the time was this gentleman, who was a consultant on the British Development Project, was actually a director at the University of New Hampshire. And he provided an opportunity for Andrew to go and further his education. Andrew, remembering the little fella from St. Vincent who said, nominate me and I nominate you, then went down to Springfield College in Massachusetts, where there was an education fair, picked up a brochure and sent it down to me and said, boy, this is your opportunity. I grabbed the thing. I went to Teachers Credit Union and I borrowed $10,000. And that was the beginning of a story that is well documented. Andrew finished up his bachelor's there, went on to do his master's and his PhD. I went to Springfield College and finished up my bachelor's. I moved on to do an MBA, and then I moved on to do other work, not PhD, but went on to Harvard and other institutions around the world and did other advanced studies. So we both use each other to develop this country. I think St. Vincent and the Grenadines is better off. And I'm sorry that there are not more young people here today. But it is a lesson for young people that we can hold each other's hands to grow. And that's how human beings can make progress. By yourself, you're nothing. But together, we're everything. I want to wish Dr. Simmons every success in spreading the gospel of the imprisonment of the Vincentian people as prisoners of war, and every success in the getting the message out on the environment, the impact, and the entrepreneurial opportunities that exist for young people in spite of the challenges of the environment and the problems we have with the environment. So, Dr. Simmons, I wish you every success. Congratulations on the book. And ladies and gentlemen, Acado St. Vincent is proud to be associated with the education and good projects that will help to develop the people of St. Vincent and Grenadines. Thank you very much. I stole your paper.
Thank you. Acado rocks. Put your hands together for Mr. Jimmy Ford. So I'll show you a pattern and hope my teachers are listening. Dr. Andrew Simmons wants a teacher. Almost said doctor, but actually mean Mr. Jimmy Ford wants a teacher. Your MC, Miss Maxine Marvin Brown, wants a teacher. Teaching can take you places. Teachers, don't give up. Work hard, help the children, and you'll see success. Another point that jumped out at me is the fact that he mentioned look out for each other. As Vincentians, you have to work hand in hand to help each other and build each other up to develop our blessed homeland, sweet, sweet St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Again, put your hands together for Mr. Jimmy Ford, CEO, Acado. At this time, I put a smile in my heart. This man has been good to me. The historical relevance of the exhibition will now be expressed by a renowned historian from whence we came, Dr. Adrian Fraser.
Good morning. I usually like to start by saying protocol has been established, but I want to recognize, His Excellency, Minister Cupid, all the members of Cabinet, Jimmy Ford, and of course, Maxine, for the excellent work you've been doing. Now, I start with a problem, and I hope it is only my problem. And I'll try to see how I could work around that problem. When I received a letter to be here today, it said, we'd like you to speak on the significance of the Garifuna resistance, the capture and removal of Caribbean prisoners of war, and the importance of preserving this history for the future generation. When I came this morning, I saw that I'm supposed to speak on the historical relevance of the exhibition, which I have not seen. But I will try and work around this. About the indigenous people, the Garifuna in particular. In the original letter, I have to recognize that perhaps the best known aspect of the history of St. Vincent has to do with the indigenous people, especially with the Garifuna. We have heard a lot about that. And particularly, since our connection with the diaspora in Central America, but what is missing is what had happened in England, Portchester Castle. And so I'm going to try to walk around what I say and try and provide some context. In October 1796, a fleet from the Caribbean with over 2,500 prisoners of war, mostly black or mixed race, arrived at Portsmouth Harbor. Most were sent to Portchester Castle. Among them would have been Garifuna people. And we have to realize that the majority of the Garifuna people were based in St. Vincent. And at that time, what was happening was a war largely between the British and the French. And after the French Revolution, what they attempted to do was to make connections with people who were dissatisfied with British rule, including the Garifuna in St. Vincent, so that that group that went to England would have included people from Dominica, particularly from St. Lucia and Grenada, and even Guadeloupe. And it is difficult knowing who was who. But I was going to provide some, but just to say that the period we're speaking about was the period when the French from the very beginning, French and British were competing to colonize St. Vincent. In fact, they were so afraid of the other colonizing St. Vincent that what they did, that is the French and the British, they decided that St. Vincent and Dominica to some extent would be neutral colonies, that is belonging neither to the British or the French, because they feared if the British owned it, what would happen to the French? If the French owned it, what would happen? And these were actually put in a treaty, and even before. So St. Vincent for a long time remained neutral, and eventually was the last of these countries to have been colonized by the British. Now, we are looking this period at the Second Carib War. And I just want to point out that when the British came to St. Vincent in 1763, they began to produce sugar in 1766. But at that time, the other Caribbean countries had been producing sugar since the 1640s. And they had been enslaved. St. Vincent was still a slave society. The British brought in their slaves. The French who had been living here had some slaves, but the Garifuna and the indigenous people developed a relationship with the French because the French were really small farmers. They did not have control of St. Vincent. The Kalinago people at that time controlled St. Vincent. So they were happy making that kind of connection with the French. But when we go to the Second Carib War, it was a situation where the French had gone and captured some of these islands. And the British retaliated. So in 1795, we have the Second Carib War. And that Second Carib War, and we have to remember, with that Second Carib War, which started in 1795, that Chateaubriand died within the first day of that war, when they were launching the attack on from Dorsetshire Hill, he died. So it is the courage and resilience of the rest of the Carib people, supported by the French, who were able to sustain this. Now, there were different periods during that war when the British survival were rescued by the timely arrival of British ships. And there were 4 occasions when everyone felt that the Garifuna and the French had overcome the British. A ship or 2 arrived and changed the situation. But the main factor was in 1796, when on the 3rd of June, the largest fighting force ever to arrive in St. Vincent came with General Abercrombie with 4,000 soldiers, the largest ever to have come to St. Vincent. And after intense fighting, on June the 10th, 1796, a French general who was fighting along with the Garifuna people surrendered. And with 700 of his people, they surrendered. That man, General Marina, was one of the persons who went to Portchester Castle. So we have that kind of connection, but he went along with 700 of his men. And interestingly enough, he went on the HMS, on the same experiment, HMS experiment, which later on carried the Garifuna to Central America. So he surrendered with 700 of his men and was immediately put on the ship and sent off to England. So this was in June 1796. The French, some French and some of the Garifuna people who were part of that moved into the mountains to escape having to surrender to the British. There was another occasion on the 2nd of October 1796 when another French general who was fighting in St. Vincent, Marine Padre, and a few others surrendered. That was on the 2nd of October 1796. Now, one isn't sure what happened to him. Obviously did not go to Baliso, because one of the things with the British and the French is that they helped each other. And some of these people who went to so Marine Pedro would have been, despite the fact that he was French fighting against the British, they owed him a lot of respect, and he obviously would not have gone to Baliso. But we do not know from the information when he went to England. And as I said, French soldiers often got good treatment, so if he remained after that, he obviously would not have gone. In fact, at that time, they were not even sending people to Baliso. This came later on. Now, how many Garifuna people were sent to Portchester Castle? It is difficult to say, because what the report said is you had a number of black French soldiers, some Garifuna people, because remember that most of the Garifuna people would have been stationed in St. Vincent. So the 700 who went on with Marina, some of them might have been Garifuna people, others would have been French soldiers. And the same thing happened with Pedre later on. But many of the Caribs refused to surrender and went into the interior. Later on, they were captured or forced to surrender because things had moved again, especially when Abercrombie came in with his large force. I just want to put this in some sort of context and to make the point that one of the issues or one of the problems when the British came in is that the lands occupied by the Garifuna were the best lands for producing sugar. Lots of rivers, flat lands. So between 1763, almost from the very beginning, until 1797, when the Garifuna were captured and the last set of them sent to Baliso, you had a war, 1772, 1773. In 1789, the French were fighting against the British, and the Garifuna helped them. In fact, at the end of that war, Châteauneuf was actually invited to the negotiating table because of the work that they had done in supporting the French. And so we need some more information, and I don't know if it's easy to get, because we have the names of some of the French people, French soldiers, but in terms of the number of Garifuna people from St. Vincent as opposed to those who would have come from the other islands. And I want to mention here that in looking at all of this, the significant thing about this resistance by the Garifuna people was that, well, even before the Garifuna, the Kalinago people, it allowed St. Vincent to be the last country ever to be colonized, while the others were colonized St. Vincent because of the resistance of the Garifuna. And interestingly enough, when the last set of them was sent to Baliso, the British then took over the lands which were occupied by the Garifuna people, because those were the lands they wanted all the time. And eventually, between 1805 and 1828, St. Vincent, only second to Jamaica, was the largest producer of sugar. They started late and in that period, and simply because the Garifuna lands were virgin lands, they were not occupied and not in that sort of way, so that they played a very important part. The other thing which should mention is that there were slaves in St. Vincent, but there was never a slave society until until they were able to get rid of the Garifuna. And just to make that difference between a slave society and a society with slaves, a slave society is governed by slave laws. The slave laws protected the proprietors, protected slave society against the slaves then, so that the indigenous people played a very important role, and one could understand then why these wars went on, especially when St. Vincent became such a large producer of sugar. And finally, in making the point and indicating the need to get some more information about Portchester Castle, is that the connection we have now with the Garifuna in Belize and in Central America allows us to be able to recapture some of the language, the culture, and a lot of other aspects, so that is very important. So what we need to blend this, and some of this information might be difficult, because what the British did is that some of the people who came to England, they exchanged them prisoners from Britain with those from France, and one isn't sure where a lot of them went to. Whereas in the case of those from Central America, we know because that connection remained, while in the case of the British, those who went to Britain, that was not so. So, as I said, I had prepared a different kind of presentation, but try to blend this in and to put some focus on Portchester Castle, and to recognize the need for more information so that we could build to the information we have about the indigenous people. Thank you very much.
Our people without the knowledge of their past history, origin and culture is like a tree without roots. Dr. Adrian Fraser continues to keep us rooted. Again, put your hands together for Dr. Adrian Fraser. Before I call on our next presenter, which happens to be a cultural package, a cultural item rather, I'd like to acknowledge Ms. Winnie Baptiste, former parliamentarian, former Minister of Culture. Let's acknowledge her, please. And now, this is where my heart always smiles. It's an honor to welcome our cultural ambassador, Kenneth Vibrating Skate Saline. Let's welcome him, please.
Good morning. I was going to say good morning. Right, give me some feedback, reduce it. Lose it, you there? Look, Jimmy, I ain't see Jimmy for a year. Jimmy, good? Hey. Well, Renee, I know it is with me and you. She's the woman who led the first demonstration as a schoolgirl in 1967. Round of applause. History. Who's the second? And look who looked the Governor General led the second one, right? So you had two demonstrations, and we demonstrate we just get independence, so people have to march in the street. And some will hear tear gas, don't forget that. A lot of things happened in that time. And we are keeping the struggle going. We talk about black struggle, and I'm still in the struggle. If you hear what I sing now, and you hear what I sing in 1983, you're going to understand that the struggle ain't over, and you must fight to keep what you have. God, they're going to sneak back in the night and take it away. Don't forget, and let the younger ones know too, Give me a song over there. Emancipate me now. La 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 la, 1984. Since the year 1834, emancipation opened the door. From slavery to independence, we fight in the dread conditions. Rise up against racism, break down colonialism, pursuing freedom totally in the painful road to liberty. Now the life we live and the love we give is only 192 years. We must fight to protect our rights, because the enemies of progress don't want to see us unite. La la la, let me hear you. La la la, wave your hand. Bidi bidi bidi, bada badi bidi bidi. Riots, wars and revolution brought this period of full freedom. The rights to vote at elections, trade union recognition, legalized Baptist worship, coming out of the closet. From 80% illiteracy down to 10% in this country. Now the life we live and the love we give is only 192 years. We must fight to protect our rights. Tell them, because the enemies of progress don't want to see us unite. Sing la la la, la 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 la. I hear it. We must not forget our roots, patriots and heroes of truth, like Toussaint and Marcus Garvey, Captain Kojo and Walter Rodney, Morris Bishop and Butler, raised black consciousness higher. Their blood, sweat and tears were shed so that we could hold up our head. Now the life we live and the love we give is all day 192 years. We must fight to protect our rights, because the enemies of progress don't want to see us unite. Sing la la la, la la la. Bam 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 bam. Liberation is everywhere, equal rights for you to share, regardless to your ambition. Try to get education. The power in our people lies in knowledge, wisdom and struggle. The good, the bad, the indifferent, justice is all we really want. Now the life we live and the love we give is only 192 years. We must fight to protect our rights, because the enemies of progress don't want to see us unite. Sing la la la. I hear it, you. La la la. Jimmy. 1984 was nice. La 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 la. Woo! I ain't hear you. Let me hear you say, yeah! Right, we sound like we emancipated now. And we're going a long way. You know, 1984 to now, I ain't changed my mind, you know. I still fighting with the struggle. You understand me? Now, when we get something, we take it for granted after a time because everything gets nice. The toilet and bath come in the house now. You remember how the toilet used to be? Okay, you have to go through the rain to go to the bathroom, you know. Anyway, so we come a long way. Play something for this year, give me. Let me see how well. Hearing the drums of Africa, saying hello to Cuba. Echoes of a people under pressure, facing the same wicked oppressor.
Imperialism has gone mad, pretending to do the work of God. So we must bind them demons together. We're not bowing to no demonic power. Tell them, Cuba is not for sale. The Caribbean is waiting to exhale. Cuba is not for sale. Wall Street could bring down the Holy Grail. A time of peril is upon us when blasphemers say in God we trust. It's all a game for financial gain. Tell them, Havana, the world is feeling your pain. Woo!
Andrew, in the house.
Bam,
You fought to liberate Africa
while apartheid strangled black culture. The continent was rising up, but colonialists wanted it to stop. You gave medicals to have the poor. Doctors and nurses went from door to door. And we learned from the recent pandemic, you helped the Italians in caring for their sick. Tell them Cuba is not for sale. The Caribbean is waiting to exhale. Cuba is not for sale. Wall Street could bring down the Holy Grail. Tell them a time of peril is upon us when imposters say in God we trust. It's all a game for financial gain. Woo! Havana, the world is feeling your pain. Somebody did it. Bim bim.
fighting the spirit of Shataway
For your share of this hemisphere. I hope you understand the mission. Don't you be no second-class citizen. Caribbean people have come of age, never again to be nobody's slave. Freedom fighters will turn in their graves if we don't stand up and be very brave. Tell them, Cuba is not for sale. The Caribbean is waiting to exhale. Cuba is not for sale. Wall Street could bring down the Holy Grail. A time of peril is upon us when warmongers say in God we trust. It's all a game for financial gain. Havana, the world is feeling your pain. Bam 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 ba de da. Bam bi di bi di bi di bi di bi di bi di di.
Remember Simon Bolivar
And one Toussaint Louverture. The tenacity of Jose Marti caused mercenaries still ravaging Haiti. Over 60 years of embargo released drug dealers and jailing Maduro. Those champions of democracy get Gomez, Uzi and grabbing the oil money. Tell them, Cuba is not for sale. Caribbean is waiting to exhale. Cuba is not for sale. Wall Street could bring down the Holy Grail. A time of peril is upon us when pedophiles say in God we trust. It's all a game for financial gain. Let me hear you. Havana, Havana, the world is feeling your pain. Woo! Bambade. Woo! Bam bibi dibi 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 dim. Yeah. I see people laughing. Hey! Give boy an applause for that. You see the connection between 1984 and 2026. We got to keep the mission going. Don't forget your roots. Always remember your roots. And we mix it up with one in between now. Hey, Bam to me. I can't remember the words except the first verse. I can't remember the words except the first verse. I look up, I look down, I can't, and all of we ringing in the head is the first verse. I say, why does first verse catch me so? Right? So here now, we have a group called JEMS. I don't have a representative from JEMS here today. You have a representative? You have a representative? Oh! In 1992, this representative invited me to write a song, and you can hear what this song was about. But it's climate change, or fighting, and trying to awaken the consciousness of people with climate change. So JEMS is doing a good job, and they're still doing a good job. And this project is, let me hear it for JEMS. Let's hear it for JEMS. All right, singing in the cold is easier. But I'll make it do. All right? Now, play something for me. See if I get the first verse, feel happy. Ding, 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 ding. Of April 1792, Kings Hill Reservation was born, attracting clouds and rain from the hills and plains to the reservation. Now it stands today as a monument transcending the fortunes of time. Hurricanes came and storms remain. She stands firm in the sunshine. Kings Hill, sing now. Kings Hill, can't hear. Kings Hill. I said the birds and the bees and the banyan trees, 200 years and no disease. Kings Hill. Yeah! Natural place that is so beautiful. Visit us, calling our gem, and we shall be in this memory of that beautiful place like a step. Now it stands today as a monument, transcending the values of time. Hurricanes that came and storms remain. She is of value in the bright sunshine. Kings Hill. I said the birds and the bees and the sand and trees, the mountains, and no disease. Kings Hill. Hey! The virgin of my glass, right there. These are the banyan trees, 200 years and no disease. Kings Hill. Let me hear. I said the birds and the bees and the banyan trees, 200 years. You think I can add up? Kings Hill. You know the birds and the bees and the banyan trees, 200 years and no disease. Kings Hill. I can't hear me Kings Hill. You know the birds and the bees and the banyan trees, 200 years and no disease. Kings Hill. Hear me? Kings Hill. Hey! Thank you very much for listening. And we dubbing. Pam pa ding ding.
Woohoo! Together for skates. Put your hands together for Mr. Skates, our cultural ambassador. Former Kaiser Monarch in SVG. Big him up. Thank you, Skates. Is my mic working? Kings Hill all the way. All years, the first song rendered by our cultural ambassador was Emancipation. So I think it's my time now to make my pitch for tomorrow, Emancipation Day. And I see the colors are coming out, the fashion. Tomorrow, it's a whole day affair, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. But at 3 p.m., you meet Teacher Maxine at Heritage Square, just in your fangalang, just in your African fashion, and we'll parade to the sweet drum music of Nzembu, Rose Hall, and Dragdo, and I'm missing one. Oh, Rose Bank Bombers. So you come out, bring whole family, it's a family affair, and come meet Maxine down Heritage Square, all right, man? I could sing to you, know? 3 p.m. And we parade down the streets of SVG to Victoria Park, and when we get there, a big cultural extravaganza awaits you coming out. Hey, pep, pep. Talk to me, baby. So let's move on, right along. At this time, it's quite an honor to welcome my minister, our minister of Youth, Sports, Culture, and Creative Industries, the Honorable Kashaka Cupid. Let's welcome him.
I wouldn't begin by protocol being already established, though. But let me acknowledge the presence of His Excellency, Sir Stanley Kissy John, Governor General of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It's always good when you don't have to acknowledge yourself, too. So. Former parliamentarians, Mr. Jimmy Prince and Ms. Renee Batiste, welcome. It's Maxine Brown, Director of Culture and Chairperson, Ms. Gianna Nevison, President of JEMS, and of course, the honorary of the day, Dr. Andrew Simmons, Director of JEMS and feature author, Dr. Adrian Fraser, our esteemed historian, my good friend, Mr. Jimmy Ford, Chief Executive of Acado, Mr. Samuel Goodluck, Chief Executive Officer of Vincent, other executive members, distinguished guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, pleasant morning. Just got to make sure. Well, is it indeed an honor and a really privilege for me to be here with you this morning at the opening of this significant exhibition, an exhibition of our history, heritage, and memory. Garifuna, Prisoners of War, and the launch of the latest of publications by Dr. Andrew Simmons. Now today is about preserving memory, honoring resilience, and ensuring that the future generations understand the sacrifices, the struggles, and the triumphs that have shaped our identity as a people. The story of the Garifuna people occupies a special place in the history of our beloved St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and more so, the wider Caribbean. It is a story of courage in the face of adversity, of cultural resilience despite displacement, and of a people who refuse to allow their identity to be erased. The experiences of the Garifuna prisoners of war reminds us that history is not only about the past, but it also continues to shape who we are today and even who we aspire to become. As minister with the responsibility for culture, I firmly believe that preserving our heritage is one of our greatest national responsibilities. Our history, our traditions, our languages, music, dance, and stories are invaluable treasures that must be protected, documented, and shared. When we invest in our cultural heritage, we strengthen our national identity. We inspire. We build bridges of understanding across numerous generations. I must commend JEMS for spearheading this important initiative and for creating a space where education, research, and public engagement come together. I also congratulate Dr. Andrew Simmons for his outstanding scholarship and unwavering commitment to producing research that will advance academic knowledge. And I must also say though, we know that Dr. Simmons had political aspirations, and probably still do, right? However, with the demands of political life, well, I put him on the spot. With the demands of political life though, I am not sure if you would have had the time to really dedicate to the publication of these books. So, in essence, you're still 3 books. You're still 3 more coming. Okay. You're still contributing to the advancement and the development of St. Vincent and the Grenadines in a very meaningful way, and we appreciate you for that. Now, his research that will advance academic knowledge, as I said, while also addressing pressing issues affecting our region, including climate change, youth development, migration, and institutional resilience. And I listened attentively earlier about the relationship between Dr. Simmons and Mr. Jimmy Ford. And while I'm on the topic of youth and their relationship while being members of the National Youth Council, and here today, this gives me the platform to mention that we have a National Youth Commission that has been appointed by Cabinet. And this Youth Commission would be tasked in reviving and revitalizing the National Youth Council. So, it is our goal to ensure that the National Youth Council is an independent arm that is separate from the influence of government and other societal pressures. Yes, I'll be leaning on them for advice and of course some level of direction too. Now, these publications demonstrate how research can inform public policy and contribute to sustainable national development. As a government, we recognize the importance of evidence-based decision-making, and we welcome partnerships with our academic institutions and researchers in shaping a stronger future for our country. I also wish to acknowledge the invaluable contributions of our historians, and Dr. Adrian Fraser is here today, our cultural practitioners. We have our cultural ambassador and other aspiring artists here today too. We have our sponsors in Acado and Vincho, and all those whose dedication have made today's event possible. Your work ensures that our collective memory remains alive and accessible. Ladies and gentlemen, culture is the foundation of our national identity. It tells us where we came from, it strengthens our sense of belonging, and guides the direction in which we are going. It is our responsibility to preserve this legacy and to pass it on for future generations with pride and integrity. As we observe this exhibition today, let us reflect on the lessons of history. Let us honor those who endured unimaginable hardship, celebrating the enduring spirit of the Garifuna people, and recommit ourselves to protecting and promoting the rich cultural heritage that defines St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I encourage everyone, especially our young people, to engage with this exhibition, ask questions, explore the stories being shared, and appreciate the profound significance of our history. On behalf of the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, I congratulate JEMS once again, Dr. Andrew Simmons, and all partners involved in the remarkable initiative today. May this exhibition and these publications continue to educate, inspire, and strengthen our appreciation for our shared heritage. Thank you, and may God continue to bless us all. You don't need this, right? You don't need this, right?
Culture is profound. Well, the whole morning my heart was smiling, but I'm always very pleased when my minister comes to the lectern and preach on culture and how much investment we continue to make at culture. He's the man with the plan for youth, sports, and culture. Again, let's head for our minister, the Honorable Kashako Cupid. Talk to me and do the things we promised to do. At this time, I have put my best tone on as I welcome our Governor General, His Excellency Sir Stanley Kendrick John Casey, Governor General of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It's an honor to welcome him.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, Ms. Maxine Brown, our Director of Culture. Minister Cupid, I don't see any other cabinet members present. Mr. Andrew Simmons, the Sustainable Development, the Director of Sustainable Development for JEMS, Ms. Nevinson, the President of JEMS, former members of Parliament, Jimmy Prince, Ms. Batiste, presence here, greatly appreciated by the organizers, Dr. Adrian Fraser, who presented today, Mr. Jimmy Ford, our cultural ambassador, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I see some familiar faces, but if I start naming names, then I'll have to name everybody's name. So although I'm tempted to do so, I will resist the temptation. We're all distinguished, all friends. Very pleased to be here with you today. This exhibition, we are told, is intended to highlight the courage, resistance, and resilience of more than 2,500 of our Garifuna ancestors and other Caribbean men, women, and children captured during the French Revolutionary Wars from 1793 to 1802. Many of them, as we heard, recounted, were transported to Britain and imprisoned at Portchester Castle in 1796. After resisting British colonial expansion in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Lucia, Grenada, and other Caribbean territories. The organizers declare the objective of this exhibition is to offer the Vincentian public an important opportunity to learn about the experiences of these prisoners, the leadership and resistance of the Garifuna people, and the broader Caribbean struggle for freedom. The exhibition features, as we can see, historical displays, educational presentations, cultural activities, as we had a taste of it from our cultural ambassador, who always impresses with the consciousness of the renditions that he does his songs. They always have a powerful historical or cultural edifying message. And I commend his talent and endurance of his representations to us, which are always positive. Also, the exhibition includes storytelling and opportunities for public engagement. And as such, we are told, provides an opportunity for the enrichment of our awareness of an important aspect of our distinctive history and heritage. Now, history and heritage, we are aware, serve as a country or people's identity, and they are inseparable from one another. If I may borrow the instructive description that our national historians, Dr. Fraser, who's here with us today, Denny and Scott, provide us with in the first volume of our General History of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And I'm quoting in part what they instruct us about history and culture. This is a post-colonial state requires its people to be clear what constitutes its history and heritage. The legacies of racism, poverty, and inequality are reflected in everyday life. These historical wrongs are yet to be addressed, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines is one of 14 CARICOM member states that are demanding that former colonial powers acknowledge their debilitating colonial past and apologize for their wrongs and make amends through reparations. Understanding that history is therefore important in the nation-building processes of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And they go on to explain that understanding and appreciating the strides modern Vincentians have made means fully engaging the linked histories of native genocide and the enslavement of African bodies. To paraphrase our distinguished national historians further, they point out that besides being home to indigenous peoples who are the foundation of the Caribbean civilization, this country was the center of what was referred to as the quote-unquote Carib Republic for centuries. It was also where the Gariganu or Garifuna emerged as a race and was moreover a place where the philosophy and the practice of violence, resistance to European colonization and imperialism were evident. We've heard some recounting of that from Dr. Fraser himself a little earlier this morning. Now, indeed, every opportunity for Vincentians to explore and interrogate these landmark events in our checkered historical journey and the rich, even if in some respects, poignant legacies which endure from them is to be welcomed and embraced. So hence the importance of today's event. The significance in our national life of our history and its intersection with our heritage is aptly illustrated by a noted Garifuna scholar, Dr. Joe Palacio, the anthropologist. In his introduction to Dr. Fraser's monograph, From Villain to National Hero, Chatelier and the Early Struggle for Independence of St. Vincent, which was written in 2019. Dr. Palacio posits in relation to Dr. Fraser's account of Chatelier's preeminent role in the leadership of the wars waged against the British to vindicate St. Vincent independence. And we heard this morning that that war ended in 1797, and it was around 1796, 97, that some of those who participated in the war was shipped off to England and incarcerated at Portchester Castle. This is what Dr. Palacio says in relation to the importance of heritage in our national life. I quote him, more than 120 years after the war, the process of transforming the cultural value system of St. Vincent to accept who had earlier been a villain and have him become a national hero is a major contribution of Fraser's monograph. The main problem becomes less the vestiges of colonial power than the challenges of building structures and systems, embodying new socio-cultural value systems consistent with a modern nation state. So that is where we're at now. And this is all part of what this exercise is. Because in the past, we were given certain perspectives on who should be valued and what should be valued about our history. And over time, we have found, as we appreciate and portray now in our various cultural activities and in the storytelling and the history making, that those didn't promote us as Vincentian in the most positive and edifying manner. And we are searching now and looking to find facts based on which we are redefining our national character and the way we see ourselves and the way we wish for others to see us. Now, this exhibition is a further exemplification of our efforts to advance these noble objectives in nation-building consciousness. And I express the full-hearted support of the Governor General's Office for the commendable efforts by all of our eminent patriots and their associates to whose dedicated service we owe this presentation. Now, the program today also features a special launch, as we have heard, of books on climate change and community resilience by our distinguished Dr. Andrew Simmons. The declared intention of marrying, as it were, the presentation, the exhibition, with the launching of these works, being to connect the resilience shown by our ancestors with the ongoing need to build strong, sustainable, and climate-resilient Caribbean communities. Now, climate change, we are aware, is observed over a long period of time and includes the seasonal temperatures, rainfall averages, and wind patterns of the region, and also global warming, which is marked by the rise in global average temperatures caused mostly by human activities like burning coals, oil, and gas. And we know that most of those activities, the burning of coal, oil, and gas, etc., are not done so much by us down here nowadays, but by the large industrial countries. We, however, pay an unequal price for their indulgences. And climate change, we're advised, presents a major existential threat, and how we respond to it will determine what our future looks like. Across the Caribbean, we are seeing the real effects of climate change. Hotter days, like today, as I was getting ready to come here, I started off by thinking I'm coming to an event and I'm Governor General and I'm supposed to dress well and so on. So I look for the lightest jacket I have and a shirt and put it on. And when the water started pouring all down, I say, I can't make it. I can't make it. I had to go through. So if I don't see Dr. Simmons and others and Minister Cupid, forgive me. I could make it. Hence the way I'm attired. Yes, from shifting weather patterns and that impact food production to rising sea levels that cause catastrophic flooding and coastal erosion, we are already experiencing some of these effects of climate change, which will only intensify if we continue with business as usual. Many of these effects are directly attributable, as we observed, to activities like industrialization, deforestation, and unsustainable agriculture. And according to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the net damage costs of climate change are likely to be significant and to increase over time. The experts warn further that we stand to lose clean air, safe drinking water, and nutritious food supply and global stability to start with. Now, how do we respond to climate change? Of course, we're being advised and encouraged by leaders at all levels. We are hearing lots of speeches and lots of conferences and activities are taking place in which we have been advised. The work that and the books that Dr. Simmons is producing is one aspect of how we are endeavoring to enlighten, heighten public consciousness so that we can do little things in order to alleviate the onset of what can be terrible for us, mankind, if we don't make a change. Now, reforestation has consistently ranked as the #1 climate change solution, and with good reasons. Trees help to stabilize our climate by absorbing and sequestering carbon via photosynthesis. In fact, it is said that one mature tree can sequester up to 22 pounds of carbon in 1 year. They also filter and absorb air pollutants, release oxygen for us to breathe, modulate temperatures, provide wildlife habitat, and so much more. So clearly, trees are an important aspect of what we do with regard to maintaining our environment in a salubrious fashion. St. Vincent and the Grenadines has an exceptional history and heritage in proactively taking measures to safeguard against the modern perils of climate change. We were the first country globally by all reckoning, and this is asserted by reliable sources, to enact legislation aimed at preserving the healthy benefits of a pristine environment via the Kings Hill Forest Act of 1791. We heard our cultural ambassador Skate saying about Kings Hill, and since 1992, Dr. Simmons, together with JEMS, even before we had all of this going on in the world now and all these big conferences, were concerned about that. I want to leave you in that regard with a most insightful reflection on our Vincentian history and heritage in relation to climate change and the preservation of our environment. You know, fascinating monograph published in 2022 entitled The Green Legacy of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the Kings Hill Forest Act of 1791, and the St. Vincent Botanic Gardens. Rhonda King, our former UN ambassador, articulates the profound perspectives that, and I'm quoting her, "It is true that much of our history is rooted in struggle. Still, we must endeavor to see anew. History, after all, is about retelling stories, making new links, and emphasizing different aspects of our past to bring meaning to present conditions. Amidst the struggles, enslavement, exploitation, wars, and genocide, environmental institutions were founded. These institutions not only commercialized on a large scale common practices of the indigenous peoples, but also sought to legislate some of those practices so that their longevity might be ensured. As far-fetched as it may seem, I believe that St. Vincent can once again play a significant role on the global stage. If we recognize and harness the potential of our green legacy, perhaps we can lead the way once again in creatively cooperating with our environment. This will require a revamping of the prevailing mindset. We desperately need to be acquainted with our center, or reacquainted with our center, we need to recultivate certain sensibilities. And obviously, your work, Dr. Simmons, and the work of JEMS, in addition to bringing to life for us our past history with regard to the struggle, enslavement, or struggle for freedom, also touch and engage the very vexed and important issue of climate change and how we respond to it today. It is for that reason that I welcome the opportunity to be here today with you, to be identified with this event, and I commend it to all. I hope that the message, that the exhibition, your books, and all that was said here today reach far and wide in our communities. Thank you very much for your patience.
Our Governor General is a man of profound words. And when he speaks to the good works that Dr. Simmons continues to do through the Portchester story and through his own book he has authored, you know, sound. Again, put your hands together for our Governor General. Before we move on to the official book launch, I want to remind you to scan the QR code and respond to the questions there so we'll get your feedback. So we're moving on to a different phase now, the book launch, publications by Dr. Andrew Simmons. At this time, I'll call on Samuel Goodluck, Mr. Samuel Goodluck, CEO of Vincent, to make his presentation. Let's welcome him, please. Someone is speaking on his behalf. Another Andrew. Let's welcome him.
Thank you, Master of Ceremonies. My name is Andrew Lockhart. I'm not Samuel Goodluck. Your Excellency, Stanley Kendrick John, Casey, Governor General of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the Honorable Kashaka Cupid, Minister of Culture, Sport, Youth and the Creative Industries, Honorable Rennie Batiste, President of the Constituency Council of the OECS, Dr. Adrian Fraser, eminent historian, Mr. Jimmy Ford, Chief Executive Officer of Ocado, Dr. Andrew Simmons, I call him the chief celebrant here today, President Jenna Neverson, President of JEMS, other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. On the behalf of Mr. Samuel Goodluck, I hereby offer these words. Like my friend artist, I have been asked to make some brief remarks on the behalf of our friend Andrew, who continues to pursue his lifelong journey of mitigating the effects of climate change. Andrew is passionate about building resilience to the effects of climate change, and one of his books, Building Institutions for Resilience, is a must-read not only for students, scientists, and researchers, but also for persons who are interested in the subject. We are currently witnessing an increase in floods, storms, and wildfires, which are consuming hundreds of thousands of acres of arable lands and housing stocks across Europe and the UK. And in our neck of the woods, we are experiencing heat waves which are affecting the production of food and, by extension, impacting the well-being of the populace. A couple of years ago, I was visiting with the Simmons family in London and invited by Andrew to accompany him on a visit to meet with the top brass of the UK's Met Office, headquartered in Exeter, where he was presenting a proposal. Needless to say, Andrew had the entire executive literally eaten out of his hands. We must embrace and celebrate our son of the soil, who is leaving his footprints across the globe on this topical subject, which is Goal 13 of the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals, that is, to take action to combat climate change and its impact. Let it not be said about Andrew that he is a prophet who is not without honor, save in his own country. Thank you.
Thank you to Mr. Andrew Lockhart. Book 1, Andrew Simmons, 2020. Impacts of Climate Change on Youth in Small Island Communities, Spring Nature. At this time, Mr. Artis Davis, retired Superintendent of Police, will make his presentation. Welcome him, please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Please permit me to stand on the protocol which has been established. I am pleased to deliver remarks at this important occasion, the launching of Dr. Andrew Simmons's latest work, Impacts of Climate Change on Young People in Small Island Communities. Dr. Simmons is not only a respected climate scientist, but also the visionary director of the JEMS organization. Under his stewardship, JEMS has become a beacon of environmental education and advocacy, empowering communities across the Caribbean region and beyond to understand, adopt, and respond to the pressing challenges of climate change. Through JEMS, Dr. Simmons has championed community engagement, equipping citizens with knowledge and tools to safeguard the environment. In the process, inspiring the next generation to take ownership of climate action. Some of the projects undertaken were cleaning of rivers, replanting of mangroves, in particular in the Brighton Prospect area, and ensuring that the Kingshill Reserve is not deforested. This book, Impacts of Climate Change on Young People in Small Communities, distilled the lived realities of our youth, how rising sea levels, shifting weather patterns, and fragile economies affect their futures. It gave voice to the most vulnerable, reminds us that climate change is not an abstract concept, but a daily challenge for young lives. I have long admired Dr. Simmons' ability to blend rigorous science with compassionate leadership. His work reminds us that resilience is not merely about infrastructure or policy. it is about people, their livelihoods, and their dignity. This book captures the truth with clarity and conviction. As we celebrate this book launch, let us commit ourselves to the vision Dr. Simmons has articulated. Let us ensure that our young people are not left to bear the brunt of climate change alone, but are supported by communities that are informed, united, and resilient. In this regard, I wish to commend Dr. Simmons for the great work which he has done. I thank you.
We all join you in congratulating Dr. Simmons on an excellent job as he continues to author book after book after book. 3 more, they are on their way. Book 2, Andrew Simmons, 2022, Climate Change, Adaptation Framework and Youth Entrepreneurship in West Africa. Singer, Springer Nature. This presentation will be made by our former parliamentarian, Mr. Jimmy Prince, former Minister of Health and the Environment. So let's welcome the Prince.
Thank you very much, Maxine, distinguished Governor General, His Excellency Stanley K. John, Andrew Simmons, Jimmy Ford, Mama Culture, Minister Kashaka, other distinguished members of this audience, good afternoon. I did promise Andrew that I would stick within the 5 minutes I've been allotted. And I promised him that, and he agreed, considering that I'm no longer a politician, he agreed with me that that would happen. I am honored indeed to join you today in celebrating the launch of the second book, Climate Change Adaptation Framework and Youth Entrepreneurship in West Africa. This, of course, is the second in a series of publications focusing on climate change adaptation and resilience. And although this one deals with Andrew's work in Sierra Leone, it certainly has very useful lessons for developing states like St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So the book, of course, is dealing with Sierra Leone, but of course, it is a developing country, and climate change is something that affects everybody. And he did spend some time in Sierra Leone working, and then he came back to England and came to St. Vincent and went back to Sierra Leone. In this case, I'd just like to big up Anora, his spouse, who came from England to be with him on the launch of this book. And Nora has to put up with his frequent absences. He's an old woman normally, and there was an exacerbation as a result of his work overseas. I wish to state up front that this particular publication goes way back. It is dealing with Sierra Leone, but it goes way back to the days when Andrew started off with JEMS. So his credentials as an environmentalist has deep roots. And I remember back in the late 70s, when we were acolytes of revolutionary activism. We were not just passive acolytes, really. But in those days, the issue of climate change was not in the forefront. We talked about teenage pregnancy and drugs and anti-colonialism and the other things that were in vogue at the time. But climate change was not on the agenda as it is now. But JEMS and Andrew were at the forefront, putting a dent in the wall that separated us from understanding what is happening to the world at the time. And later on, I worked with Andrew as his deputy, Andrew was the focal point for United Nations Environment Project, youth focal point in St. Vincent and in the Caribbean. And he went to Boston in 1990, and I took over from him for a little while until he came back and went back to being deputy. And then later on, we established what we call the Caribbean Youth Environment Network, where hundreds of Caribbean people understood what it meant to be involved in environmentalism. Those were the days, I think, this is my opinion, they were the golden years of voluntarism in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We've gone from passionate young people looking towards development to some people who have been captured by technology. I'm not saying that technology is bad, I'm just saying that they have been captured by it and we have lost that passion. I am happy to hear, and I'm talking everything in one, that Kashaka, the minister, is saying that we're going to revive the National Youth Council. I'm very happy to hear that. When we walked in the wilderness in youth work, I don't think he was even born. Were you? No, you weren't. Your father did a lot of work with us at that time, especially in the Methodist youth area. I see Celine Jack here, who was part of that. And I'd just like to say here that I had nothing to do with the treasury imposed on the NYC by Jimmy and Andrew when they sought to unseat the standing executive of the National Youth Council at the high school. In fact, I was a member of the council, but not vice president, so I was spared that imposition. The fulfillment of a lifetime dream of Andrew's was to deal with the environment in a very structured way, not just to talk about it, but to do something about it. And you heard about the issue of Kings Hill. You heard about how they did work with the pipe-borne water in the Stubbs area, Carapan area. At that time, apart from being a member of the National Youth Council, I was a television producer, and we did work together, all three of us. Jimmy from the ministry, Andrew from the civil society, and I, the technician on the camera. And we did tremendous amount of work at that time as very young people. And that is why I keep coming back to this thing. How come this thing just died? Not just in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, but in the entire Caribbean. We have a dearth of responsibility on the part of young people that we need to rekindle. And I think we should. I'm particularly honored to introduce the book at this time because it's not lost on me that we are celebrating emancipation. And Sierra Leone has almost a similar history, but a history which is born out of colonialism and slavery. And we are able now to match the two things because this is a new era that is confronting us, climate change. It is probably not as bad as slavery was, but it could be if we allow it to get out of hand. And what Andrew did was to go to Sierra Leone and to advise the government of Sierra Leone on to how to deal with the youth, how to get the youth involved in this thing. I know, and he knew, that we in the developing countries are not responsible for the crisis of climate change, but we will suffer more than the countries which are the perpetrators of this new crisis. And I think he was able to do that to a large extent by organizing the young people and to give them the tools necessary for them to look at themselves, to look at the world again, and to name that world in their own image. And that has happened. And this is what this book is talking to us about. How do we use the tools available to us to empower young people to be part of the system which is going to change the views on climate change? and to ensure that governments and policymakers come part of this thing. He assesses in the book the different approaches, for instance, the top-down approach to climate change, how the policymakers will talk down to people about what should be done. He talked about the bottom-up approach, which is more applicable to countries like ours. But then he went further and talked about the hybrid approach of bottom-up, top-down, and to see how it can be tailored to help us in the development of the regions. Our region, the Caribbean, and the region West Africa. And you know the importance of West Africa these days. You know the kind of geopolitics that's been played out there with Mali and Niger and Burkina Faso, and how the metropole, rather than calling names, have been trying to ensure that they continue to exploit the resources of these countries at the expense of these countries, without consultations by the people of these countries. Climate change is going to teach a lesson to both sides if it is allowed to get out of hand. And I think that the work that he did there was very exemplary and will continue to be used by the people in those regions. It discusses, and I'll end just now, international mechanisms. I know I spent enough time at podiums to read faces, you know. The diplomacy that comes from your eyes, you know, the subtleties, I understand it, all right? But just saying for the last time that the overall goal of limiting global warming and reducing countries' vulnerability by enhancing their ability to absorb the impact. These are some of the issues that he dealt with, and these are some of the issues that we have to grapple with going forward. I thank you very much for listening, and I hope that this will go a long way. You clap before I finish. Thank you very much.
Climate change is real, and we will continue to feel the effects of climate change. We ought to do something about it. Read the book. At this time, because we're reading the Science for True, at this time, book 3, Andrew Simmons and Andrean Simmons, 2023, Building Institutions for Resilience, Combating Climate Change, Springer, Nature. This will be done by Mrs. Celine Jack, rather. Let's welcome her.
His Excellency, the Governor General, Sir K. John, Honorable Minister of Culture, Honorable Kashaka Cupid, former ministers of government or parliamentary representatives, head table, Mr. Jimmy Ford, Director of Al-Qaeda, my former boss, as a matter of fact, my last boss before my retirement. Dr. Andrew Simmons, other distinguished guests, good afternoon. I have listened to the presentations, and we have heard about the historical relevance of the exhibition. We have heard about the relevance of what we are doing today, of going back to the roots. I'm not going to talk about the book. I am going to put the book into perspective. I am going to place the book into its historical context, starting with JEMS. J-E-M-S. Anybody remembers what is the acronym What does the acronym stand for? Good. Good. You live in my hometown. Junction, Enhams, McCarthy, Stubbs. Junction, Enhams, McCarthy, Stubbs, plus. Because it also incorporates those surrounding areas, Carapan, Victoria Village, Bunham, Prospect, and etc. Okay, so it's an organization birthed for such a time as it was. A time when the term community meant more than just social interaction. A time when swap labor and self-help guided the ways communities were built and developed. So JEMS' birthplace and location is found nestled in the center of all this informal community economic development activity. So you have the surrounding villages like Carapan, Demba, Coleridge, Victoria Village being served by remnants of small estates where the owners were not managing as before, maybe labor was short, so they were giving out plots of land on crop sharing basis. So you had families from those surrounding villages eking out a livelihood, but not enough labor on their own to work the lands. And so you had swap labor where 1 week people from, families and volunteers would come together and help one owner or family work their land. The following week, they would go to somebody else and so on. And it didn't only happen on the lands, it happened in house building too. And it happened too in animal husbandry, where people helped one another. You had someone with a cow, and they might give it out to someone else to take care of, to look after. The cow would produce. That person, if the cow produced 2 calves, the person would get one, the owner gets the other one. That person can, you see how it went? Right. So communities were there helping one another. Nobody in the community organized them to do it, It just grew out of a need and out of, Jimmy Prince mentioned just now the volunteerism thing that was in before, where everybody, it was spontaneous for you to come together to help people or to do something that it's almost gone, almost has died out. So JEMS evolved on fertile ground for community development to help people harness available resources and skills, with Andrew Simmons at his helm. And we had people like Clifton Borgin too, who were in leadership position. Andrew came out the belly of community development to help people harness available resources and skills. And he came out of this belly of community spirit, which undoubtedly fueled his innate leadership drive for mobilizing community resources So JEMS organization has had an indelible impact on our communities from that kind of community mobilization. During its 4 decades or so, JEMS had made its mark. And I am a proud and grateful beneficiary of the self-help community projects in the Stubbs community in the late 1980s. Went through JEMS pipe-borne water project. Pipe-borne water became a reality in people's homes. If first time I have water in my house. So I built a shower. So so families in like Lower Stubbs, Coconut Walk, where I'm from, benefited from these projects. And they also benefited from little tracts of road that became motorable for many. And you know something, I'm still trying to grapple with the fact that Andrew left St. Vincent for a lot of years, many years, right? And JEMS survived. JEMS survived its 40 or so years. It did not only survive, it was able to rebrand and redirect its focus from mere community needs to broader environmental needs and sustainability, as prescribed by the current local and the national and indeed global prescriptions. So we have witnessed that community leadership is the courage, creativity, and capacity to inspire participation, development, and sustainability for stronger communities. Look at JEMS. Look at its new organization structure and the new generation of leadership that has emerged. You know, many of whom I am indeed proud of. In fact, I think I taught Andrew during a short stint at Brighton Methodist School. Yes, and now he is. Don't start to count your finger, Jimmy, at the age. So new leadership has emerged, demonstrating that a leader's main task is to give people the opportunity to improve their lives. A leader is a person who can lead others and arouse interest in the cause. It is so amazing that the organization was able to attract a new generation, professionals in their own right. So we see leadership striving to invest to achieve a common goal, actively influencing others, and understanding the majority's interests most fully. It is especially important to show leadership at work, as leadership inspires confidence and enthusiasm in other people. JEMS has indeed demonstrated that exceptional achievements are within our reach when we stand tall on a foundation of personal integrity, hard work, and unwavering determination. JEMS, you have indeed proven that success is never an accident. It is always the result of high intention, sincere effort, intelligent direction, and skillful execution. Continued blessings as you go forward.
Thank you so much. At this time, we're moving right along. Andrew Simmons and Helen Grenadines 2024 towards the recognition of the impacts of environmental changes on migration trends in the Caribbean. A focus on the agriculture sector, IOM, UN migration. By Mr. Jimmy Ford, CEO, Managing Director, Acado. Let's welcome him again.
Madam Chairperson, protocol have been established. I'll go straight into the very brief presentation. Towards a better recognition of the impact of environmental changes on migration trends in the Caribbean, a focus on the agriculture sector. Andrew wrote this article for the Caribbean Youth Environmental Network. And what Andrew attempted to do, or is attempting to do, is to bring your attention to the changing migration patterns and the changing climatic change in the region. I think most persons wake up and think it's business as usual, not recognizing that what our foreparents were accustomed to 50, 60 years ago, the weather pattern that they're accustomed to, is not the same we have now. I came back from France, from Paris, about 3 weeks ago, and I was shocked as I traveled extensively to France, from Paris to Cognac and different places. And I was really, really taken by surprise when I saw, for the most part of my travel, hours, all I was seeing is farms by air and by train. And I'm saying, but what is happening here? Why you are seeing all this farming activity taking place? But when you travel through St. Vincent, we are seeing the opposite. They have recognized that there's a change in weather pattern. As a matter of fact, the hottest day I've ever experienced was in France, 45 degrees. About 1,000 persons died that day in France. But the authorities and the people in France recognize the changing weather pattern. So agriculture still strive because they put in the appropriate technology. Whereas here, we are seeing what is supposed to be the rainy season. But Gigi had to change his attire this morning because it was springing water like madness. So Andrew, in his article, is attempting to bring people's attention to the changing climatic condition and the need for a renewed focus on the agricultural sector. And what, I mean, I don't know, when I look around here, I see people like me. And I don't know anybody around here that could survive without food. And if we want to really be independent, we must ensure that we can sustain a certain degree of production. And we are moving in the opposite direction. So I thank Andrew, and to some extent the Caribbean Youth Environmental Network, for trying to inspire us to consider what is happening in the environment and consider how we can address the issues to increase our agricultural production. I invite each and every one of you to take a read of this article and do something about it. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Reading is the key. Read the article. At this time, it's an honor to welcome the author, Dr. Andrew Simmons, Director of JEMS, to make his presentation. Welcome him. Bring him up, as they say in local parlance.
I'll be very brief because of the amount of time. Can I ask Madam Simmons just to come up a bit? Pat friend. No, I asked her to come here because, and Harry would tell you, I'm extremely happy, one of the founding members of JEMS, Lawrence Sari. I'm extremely happy that, because I don't know how she put up with me for 40, almost going into 50 years. Because most of the time, I usually be away from home. But I think for me, Anoria is the bedrock. She's been there providing the support for the children. She's been there, and she's my main critic, because when we finish here, I have some words that, well, you know, when you grow up with people like Dr. Kirby, well, you see, I just saw you stop. So I know by the time we get home, she would be making her comments. But for me, I think I have the, what you call, I can't find the proper word really. But I always believe in two things. One, I couldn't spell. So I said, if you can't spell more than one way, something wrong with you. And some words, I came to the conclusion that I'm not going to put my tongue between my teeth to pronounce anything. So, you know, that is something that I really adhere to. And I think when I went to university in 1989, that when the African, well, Elson Crick and I, we were in the class in New Hampshire. Jimmy Ford alluded to it, because when I came back, Jimmy went to Springfield. Elson Crick, when the Africans, I use the word quote-unquote Africans, when they don't want us to understand what they're saying when they're talking us, they would go into their language. So what Elson Crick and I used to do, we used to go straight into the dialect, and the raw dialect. So the thing when I went to because I've been working in Sierra Leone physically from 2013 directly to 2020. So they would assign a local consultant, and the local consultant tried to trick me, not realizing that the dialect, Governor General, in Sierra Leone is similar to us. It came from us, because it was the persons who went back, you know, who went to Sierra Leone. It was after emancipation. People said, after tomorrow, people said, look, we're not going to stay to work for anybody. We're going back to Africa. So over 60,000 West Indians went back to Africa, and they call themselves as the Creole, which is a separate race, and their language is Creole. And it is being taught in school, you know. So to me, that's something that we miss, you know. But I just want to say that the books, let me tell you why I decided to write the books. After I left St. Vincent in 1997, to go to the Commonwealth. And Pat, you remember all the excellent work that we used to do in community development, Buddy LaVey and all of them. You know, Raja was a young man, and the others. I was asked by the Secretary General to represent him at, it's like the Ministry of Finance, but it's something of the Exchequer. That's what they call in England. And I went to the back of the room, and I was going through some books that were on display. And I saw a picture with Bottom Tongue. I saw photos again at Spring. I saw photos at Sandy Bay and another area, but there wasn't anything in it recognizing it was our work. It was the work that we did at community development. So this person, this lady from the British Council, she came. We worked with her, Roger, you remember, and we worked with her as an intern. But yet she went back and she published a book with all the photos without any recognition of anything in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So I prayed, after I finished the PhD, I said, God, and I finished the assignment in Sierra Leone. I told Honoria, me don't work now. I'm going to take 3 years. And I did all the research that's necessary. I did all the work in terms of, I know Springer Nature was the largest and still the largest publishers of academic books and journals and so on in the world. So I get in touch with them. And it's so rigorous. So I said, no. I am going for the best publishers. When you do your proposal, about 4 or 5 professionals in the field would review the work. They would review the work, and then after, they give you comments. When you finish writing, you send it back to another set of persons, and they review the work. And then when I got the green light on this, which is the impacts of climate change on young people in small island communities, and everybody, I hope you sign up because I'm going to give you a copy of this. This is my PhD thesis, and it worth $380. I think 110 pounds, something like that. So I'm going to give you a copy of that. And the presentation, Minister, I don't have, the problem I have is the hard copy. Madam, you have 2 of my books, right? Good. So I am going to give you, this is the research that was done in St. Vincent across the Caribbean on young people, the issues of drugs, the issues of crime, and how we going to, and the environment, how we going to work with them, how we going to remodel our TVET programs, our postgraduate programs, and our secondary schools, how we're going to rewrite this curriculum, because so this was just the research. This is the voice of people across St. Vincent and the Grenadines, specifically young people. We had organized quite a lot of focus groups and so on, and test the models. This, it's funny, because when you finish your PhD, nobody gives you money. It was funny that this thing was so good. I'm not going to brag on myself, but the work in St. Vincent was so good that the government of Sierra Leone and the African Development Bank put up $2.5 million and said, Andrew, come and implement this thing. And I would really love to see, what happened, something similar to that happened in my country. Because the money that when you're accustomed to work with hardly anything, They told me to train at postgraduate level 2,700 young people in 5 areas, because we will write the new curriculums and everything. But you know what I did? Use the same, and they said to do it in Freetown, which is the area where most of the West Indian persons were. We took it across the country. And we used the same money. We work with 6 tertiary institutions, 4 NGOs, and we train 6,500 from the same amount of money, for the 2,700, and we certify 6,300 at postgraduate level. And some of those persons, 2002, I went back to launch the book. This is the one that presented by my brother Jimmy Prince. No, sorry. Climate Change Adaptation Framework and Youth Entrepreneurship in West Africa. Because the work now is throughout Africa. You understand? The work is throughout Africa. In fact, should I? Yes. In fact, I received a call. Sorry. I received a call and I already complete all the work to go to the Pacific, Solomon Islands, to implement, but to do it across the country with secondary schools. The only thing is that they were not happy because I didn't want, at my age, I said, go in as a consultant. It's 3.5 years. You're supposed to work for 36 months, that 3 years. I can't spend at that time in somebody's country. Because my mother is 92, same part, and she so-and-so. You understand? You usually say, well, me big head boy day. So I can't go for too long. So I told them, look, I would take it as a climate change consultant. So not to run the project, because to run the project, you have to deal with all the various persons and so on. But I really want to, this is our country. I'm concerned with the young people. Sierra Leone is a place that went through, I think, 500,000 persons were killed during the Civil War. And the work that we did, the impact of that work in that country, we bring down the work itself. Even now, I kept in touch with them. That reduce the murder, they reduce the crime, and so on the country itself. So I'm extremely happy. But I just want to say, before I ask our Governor General to come, surprise, I just want to say that I have about 3 more books and I'm hoping that next year I will take the time, because the only how I work, I had to focus for about 18 to 20 hours per day, straight, and so on. So I'm hoping that next year I would take the time, because we're doing through JEMS some excellent work in St. Vincent, across St. Vincent, around the watershed communities, looking at the impacts of climate change on watershed. As Sister Batty said, we have a major problem in St. Vincent with water. We have 2 serious problems: water security and food security. And we are tackling those 2 areas. And the thing is this, that we're hoping to write these things up, get them published, so that when you pick up any book, you would see that it is your own story. The voices that is in this are young people from across the country. And these books, because I don't spend any time in terms of promoting them, because the publishers, they promote it itself. So these books are on all, they're being sold by all online bookshops across the globe. They're also being on all the major libraries, university libraries from University of Chicago and name them. They're part of the curriculum, postgraduate curriculum. So I just want to use the opportunity just to say thank you for coming. This is our country, and all of we have to make that effort to build this country, especially the young people. I would love to ask Governor General, because I just want to say that Governor General doing some excellent work in terms of building institutions around the issue of the gardens. Because if you study the history, I'm not going into it because we're hungry, but if you study the history of the gardens, the British used our botanical garden as a part of the expansion of their colonial empire, of colonialism. We heard about the Tahiti experience with the breadfruit, but we didn't. They're not telling us that all the crops and so on, they did the experiment at our botanical garden, and then they took plants and medicinal plants, crops and so on, to as far as New Orleans. So this is something that is, very, very important to know. Governor General spoke about the importance of Kings Hill, the first environmental law in the world. The first experiment to show that, forests and so on and trees would attract rain. And it is written. I can't see, when I reflect and see how visionary, how cross-cutting, and how, how brilliant these people were in St. Vincent. How much hundreds years ago. I think that this is a good lesson for each one of us, that we can move forward in terms of all we have to do is look within ourselves, extract the lessons, and then move forward. Thank you very much for coming. Governor General, I want to present you with this book. I haven't signed it as yet, but I would have to come to... Because the work that you're doing in terms of building institutions for resilience is extremely important. Thank you. I haven't signed it as yet, but I will come when I come on the 17th. They're having a meeting. He's doing some excellent work, seriously. When I went there to the government house and sat with him and the group, you see him right now, I'm getting pimples. That is what happened.
Thank you very much, Dr. Simmons. And two things you said stood out. One, that we have to work on climate change, doing our part, and you mentioned food security. I'm happy to say that it's catching on, because I have a lady I know, Carrie Silva, who got a Fulbright scholarship, and she's studying food security, food safety. So it's catching on. At this time, all good things must come to an end, and I'll invite Ms. Gianna Neverson, President of JEMS, to offer the vote of thanks. Let's welcome her, please.
A pleasant good afternoon to everyone. Protocol having already been established, it is my distinct honor on behalf of JEMS and the Ministry of Youth, Sports, Culture, and Creative Industries to deliver the vote of thanks at the conclusion of this opening ceremony for the Garifuna Prisoners of War exhibition and book launch. We are deeply honored by the presence of His Excellency Stanley Kendrick John Casey, Governor General of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Your Excellency, Your attendance and words of wisdom has added dignity, national importance, and distinction to this significant historical and cultural occasion. Sincere appreciation is extended to the Honorable Kashaka Cupid, Ministry of Youth, Sports, Culture, and Creative Industries for the ministry's partnership and support in bringing this important initiative to fruition. The ministry's involvement demonstrates its continued commitment to the preservation, promotion, and celebration of history and culture heritage of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We also warmly acknowledge the Honorable Rennie Batiste, former Minister of Culture, Mama Culture, for her presence and long-standing contribution to the development and promotion of culture within our nation. Your continued interest in our heritage is highly valued. Particular recognition is accorded to Ms. Maxine Brown, Director of Culture and Chairperson of today's opening ceremony. Your guidance, coordination, and steadfast support were instrumental in making this event possible. Your dedication, careful planning, and commitment to cultural preservation contributed significantly to the successful organization of this exhibition and book launch. We also commend her for conducting today's proceedings with professionalism and grace. Special commendation must be given to Dr. Andrew Simmons, Director of JEMS, featured author, and the driving force behind this exhibition. Through his research, vision, and dedication, the experiences of the Garifuna prisoners of war has been brought into greater public awareness. His efforts helps to ensure that this important chapter of our history is remembered, examined, and passed on to future generations. Also, we extend warm congratulations to him on the presentation and launch of his publications addressing climate change and community resilience. These work reflect his dedication to research, education, community development, and the advancement of knowledge on issues affecting small islands and developing communities. Our sincere gratitude is conveyed to Dr. Adrian Fraser, whose presentation on the historical relevance of the exhibition provided valuable insights and context. His expertise has deepened our understanding of the struggles, courage, resilience, and enduring legacy of the Garifuna people. A special expression of appreciation is extended to Acado SVG, the sponsor of this event, and particularly to Jimmy Ford, Chief Executive Officer, for the company's invaluable support. Your contribution has played a meaningful role in making this exhibition and book launch possible, and reflects a commendable commitment to education, culture, and national development. We gratefully recognize Mr. Samuel Goodluck, Chief Executive Officer of Vincent, for his participation in the book launch segment of the program. Your presence and contribution have added value and significance to this occasion. Appreciation is also conveyed to the presenters associated with the featured publications, Mr. Artis Davis, retired Superintendent of Police, the Honorable Jimmy Prince, former Minister of Health and the Environment, Ms. Celine Jack, past Director of SVG Postal Corporation. Your participation and perspective have enriched the presentation of these important works. We are especially grateful to Mr. Kenneth Vibrating Skates, Aline, Cultural Ambassador, for the cultural performance. Your contribution brought artistic expression and cultural richness to the program and reminded us of the important role that music and performance play in preserving and communicating our heritage. We acknowledge Mrs. Helen Prince for placing this activity under the guidance of the Almighty through prayer. Recognition is also due to the executive members and volunteers of the JEMS organization for the planning, preparation, and tireless effort invested in this event. Your continued dedication to environmental protection, education, community development, and cultural preservation is worthy of commendation. We acknowledge the staff and representatives of the Ministry of Youth, Sports, Culture, and Creative Industries, the management and staff of the UWI Global Campus, the technical personnel, BioShades for decoration, ushers, photographers, members of the media, API, Bay Hill News, and all those who work diligently behind the scenes. Your collective efforts have contributed greatly to the smooth and professional execution of today's program. To our specially invited guests, partners, representatives of various organizations, and members of the public, your presence is sincerely appreciated. Your attendance affirms the importance of preserving our history and creating opportunities for present and future generations to learn more about the experiences and legacy of the Garifuna people. As we continue to engage with the exhibition and the publications presented today, may we leave with a deeper appreciation for the courage, resilience, and enduring contribution of the Garifuna people. May this occasion inspire future research, education, dialogue, and meaningful action toward protecting our history, culture, communities, and environment. On behalf of JEMS and the Ministry of Youth, Sports, Culture, and Creative Industries, please accept our profound appreciation for your presence, participation, and support. May God bless each of you, and may God continue to bless St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Thank you.
I couldn't have said it any better. Put your hands together for Miss Gianna Nevison, hard-working Presidente. Thank you for your dedication. Thank you, team, for coming. I think we have some treats for our guests.